الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن يهاجر في سبيل الله يجد في الأرض مراغما كثيرا وسعة ومن يخرج من بيته مهاجرا إلى الله ورسوله ثم يدركه الموت فقد وقع أجره على الله وكان الله غفورا رحيما صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Jazakumullah, brothers and sisters, for your efforts in this holy month of Aza, of grief of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all for all your efforts and all your activities during this difficult time when we are unfortunately resorting to virtual narration of the Majlis. Inshallah, we pray, and I'm sure you'll pray with me, that inshallah next year we don't have this issue and we are together in Karbala and we do our gham and our Aza in front of the Zari of Imam Hussein, in the Haram of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But for this year, we really appreciate everyone's efforts, especially those who are busy in organizing these majalis and leading our centers in such a lovely way. Today's lecture is regarding going a little bit deeper into what we had said yesterday, and that is nafse mulhama, the inspired soul. So what did we say about nafse mulhama? We said that when a person reaches this stage of his soul or her soul, it is now that they enter into the ubudiyat of God, the being a slave or a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abd means servant. So in mulhama now we begin to embrace our identity as servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, the characteristics of this level of the soul is as follows. We leave the realm of thinking about doing good and we start to actually do good. We have good intentions, we have good niyat, and we want to get closer to God. We want success and we want the bounties. And therefore, we are now going to be faced with a lot of difficult scenarios because now we have announced our intention of being an abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, we are more likely to be tested and our determination will be more tested than before. And as I said, we need to have azm. Azm means determination, firm resolve and determination. Yes, things will get very difficult, but with this azm and with this determination, inshallah, we cannot be defeated. We can be strong and we can progress in our journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So nafs mulhama, you can give it different names. Some people like to say it is the moment where we become switched on. Some people say it is the light bulb moment. Some people will say it's the aha moment. It is basically that moment when now all of your thinking faculty is focused upon the main reason you've been created in this world, which is what I asked in my very first lecture, that why are we here? Why have we been created? We have been created to become true servants of Allah, purify our souls, get closer to Him and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And we do this very much firmly in nafse mulhama. We don't have any excuses in nafse mulhama. We don't have any silly arguments. We don't start making ourselves feel better. No, we are a little bit hard on ourselves. This is one of the signs of a mu'min, that a mu'min is hard on himself or herself, but very lenient on other people. So what happens is that we have this concept in our religion called husn-e-zan and su-e-zan. Okay? I always say to people that if you are a mu'min, if you want to be a true mu'min, if you want to be a true believer, you must do one thing. On the self, always have su-e-zan. On others, always have husn-e-zan. So when you recite a prayer, when you recite your namaz, you think to yourselves, was that a good namaz or a bad namaz? Was I concentrating or not concentrating? Always be a bit hard on yourself. Always say to yourself, no, it wasn't good enough. I could have done better. My next namaz will be better. And the next one after that will be better. When you, for example, perform Aza of Imam Hussein, you say to yourself, was that Aza truly heartfelt? You say to yourself, no, I can do better next time. So you always expect more from yourself and always push yourself to the next boundary. However, when it comes to other people, we say, for example, is this person mu'min or not? We say, inshallah, he's a mu'min. Did this person do gibat or not? We say, inshallah, they didn't do gibat. We say, was this person doing riyakari and showing off or not? We say, no, inshallah, they were not doing riyakari. So always to other people we have husn zan, always to ourselves we do su zan, and we push ourselves more in our boundaries. This is one of the secrets of becoming a true mu'min, is that on other people have husn zan, on yourself you must have su zan. So now, what are the other hallmarks or signs of nafs mulhama? The next thing I want to mention is that in nafs mulhama, our aql, our intellect, will make our decisions for us, not our attitudes or other beliefs or that kind of thing, not our emotions, not our anger, not our sabri and impatience. No, our decisions will be made by our intellect. So we must train ourselves to always resort to intellect, okay? And one more thing regarding nafs mulhama is that we must perform ihtiyat. What is ihtiyat? Can someone tell me what is ihtiyat? When we say ihtiyat, what do we mean? You'll find that the word ihtiyat comes in many places. We have in fiqh as well. Ihtiyat wajib, ihtiyat mustahab. Can someone tell me what do we mean by ihtiyat, especially in akhlaqi things and especially in terms of progressing towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What do we mean? Does anyone have any ideas regarding ihtiyat? Precaution. Sister Ghazali, you've written to writ. I'm not, okay. Precaution from Hassan family. Precaution is absolutely correct. But what do we mean? So what do we mean in an akhlaqi sense? When we say ihtiyat, okay? You will go through your life and you will be faced with different choices every single day. Iqbal Haider, to be cautious about something specifically. Good. So I'm going to elaborate now. Every single day, you will be faced by a number of choices. Should I do this or should I do that? Okay? You want something to eat, you go to a certain place. You're not 100% sure, is this pak and halal or not? Okay? Now, if you act according to fiqh, for example, err on the side of caution, yes. If you act according to fiqh, for example, you'll see that fiqh is very generous in these things. In fiqhi laws, okay, you can sometimes take the benefit of doubt, okay? But when you come to akhlaq, especially the higher levels of akhlaq, you then become muhtat. Someone who practices ihtiyat is called muhtat. So what that means is now you're not sure, is this pak halal or not? You'll say, I'm not going to take the chance. I will avoid this doubtful area. I will err on the side of caution. I will not do it. You're about to speak to someone. Before uttering what you're going to say, you think, hang on a second. If I say this, is it going to add anything? Am I adding anything by my speech? Am I going to give any value to anyone? Am I sharing knowledge? Am I sharing any good experience? Or no, this is just baseless talk. This is a waste of time. Then the person will say, I'm not going to talk. This is ihtiyat. In fiqh, you're allowed to talk. Generally, you're allowed to talk. You're not allowed to do ghibat and these things, but you're allowed to talk in general sense. But this person will say, no, why should I waste my words? Why should I give the angels on my shoulders more things to write? I will not. If it's not adding value, I will not speak. You are invited to someone's house or you're invited to some kind of gathering, okay? We have this very much in Ramadan. I don't know about there, but in London, for example, we have a very strong culture of meeting for iftar, meeting for sehri, meeting for these things. There are people there, there are talks that take place. Sometimes you have to think, hang on a second, this person has invited me. I know the type of crowd which is going to be there. I know that I can spend 2, 3, 4 hours there. And really, at the end of it, I've not achieved anything. I've not learned anything. I've not shared anything of value. So then the muhtat person will say, I'm not going to go. Because why should I waste my time in not getting closer to Allah? So this is a discussion that our akhlaq teacher used to have with us. He used to say, look at everything like in our business. We would never spend time where we are not making money. Okay. We would always see that, hang on a second, this activity, will it make me any money or not? So we'll be strict on ourselves in business. He says, in religion, why don't we do the same thing? So what he used to say was, either it is giving you profit in a spiritual sense, or it's giving you a loss in spiritual sense. If it's giving you profit in a spiritual sense, alhamdulillah, do it. If it's giving you a loss, then don't do it. So someone said, yes, but some things are neutral. They're not giving you profit or loss. These are the mubah things. These are the jaiz things. Our teacher said, in fiqh, you can take that point of view. You can say, well, this is neutral. This is not giving me plus or minus. But in akhlaq, we see that as minus. Because if you are not gaining, then it means you are losing, you're wasting time. Even if it's neutral from a fiqhi angle, from an akhlaqi angle, it's a loss. So in akhlaq, we have a much higher level of threshold. And this is what we are talking about, that when we are in nafs mulhama, we try our best not to waste even a single moment of our lives, and we remain focused upon Allah for everything. Then what will happen? Well, a number of beautiful things start to happen. There is many casualties which take place in this battle in nafs mulhama. The casualties are what? The casualties are things like greed. Greed, inshallah, will go. Depression will go. Anxiety will go. Lack of confidence will go. I'm seeing all the time, especially since lockdown, every other social media post or every other WhatsApp post seems to be love yourself, be positive about yourself, be mindful, be positive. Alhamdulillah, these are good things. But in a spiritual sense, this can only come with zikr Allah. Zikrullah, zikr khuda, yad ilahi. Remembering Allah will give you these things. So the bad qualities, the jealousies, the small things, the selfishness, this all goes because you're becoming purer and purer. At the same time, you gain many things. What do you gain? You gain nur. Your heart becomes enlightened. You gain guidance. You gain softness, riqqat. You gain some softness of the heart, softness of the soul. You are able to cry more. You are flooded with the love of God. You are flooded with the love of other people. Where you used to find bad feelings and negative energy towards other people, now all of a sudden, alhamdulillah, it's turned into positive energy. Someone used to say to you a comment that would hurt you. Now you don't look at it like that. Now you just look at everyone as if they're the poor servants of God. You have compassion. You have a lot of empathy. You see them in a different light. Okay. So you have love of humanity. You have love of society. And one of the biggest things that happens, okay, and I cannot stress this enough, and we will refer to it later on, you will find something that can be called peace of mind. In other languages, we can say things like, for example, dil ka sukoon, aankhon ki thandak, that peace of mind, that coolness of the eyes, that level of tranquility and coolness in the mind and heart. Why? Why does this happen? Because now Allah is flooding us with His love and His effects. Now we are getting rid of shaitani waswasa and whisperings in place of those shaitani whisperings and waswasa and dunyavi love. we are being flooded with the love of God and godly things. This is very, very important. You will find all of a sudden, when you are in this state of mind and heart and soul, you will find a deep sense of tranquility. And now it doesn't matter whether you have money or not, you won't care. Whether you have a job or not, you won't care. Whether you have a good house or not, you won't care. Not that these things are not important, they are important on one level, but you won't be bothered by them. You, as an individual, will not be bothered by them. We have these wonderful stories of our ulama. Let me just mention one of the ulama, um, Allama Amini, Rahmatullah alayh. May Allah bless his soul and raise his darajat in the hereafter, raise his station. He was someone, the way a businessman is always thinking about profit and loss. He's always thinking about his business. You cannot get him away from his business. He's always checking his phone, checking the markets, subsumed and consumed by his worldly life. Okay? This Allama Amini was someone who was consumed with the wilaya of Amirul Mu'mineen. His whole life was devoted to bringing forward the merits and proofs of the wilayat of Amirul Mu'mineen. So what did he do? Well, he spent around 30 years working on one monumental book. You know the book? You all must have heard of it. Al-Ghadir is his famous work he has left behind. He is, of course, now died. He has left the world. His son is still alive. So we're not talking about someone from centuries ago. This was fairly recent. Allama Amini was the type of person. He was so consumed with the love of Amirul Mu'mineen that we have a few incidents. I'm going to just narrate one or two. One of the incidents is that what was famous about him was that whenever he came across any research or any book published anywhere in the world regarding Amirul Mu'mineen and the event of Ghadir, he would go personally and he would seek out that work and research wherever it may be, and he would devote time to it, and he would go there personally and study, and he would write, and he would take references, and he would summarize, and everything that is involved. So they say that on one occasion he heard of a book, he learned of a book that was present in Hind in India. He was very eager to see this book, so he traveled all the way to India. When he reached India, he looked at this book, he studied it, he spent some time, and then he came back. When he came back, people asked him, "Oh, we heard you went to India." He said, "Yes, I did." They said, "How was the weather there? What kind of season was it?" And he said, "Oh, actually, I have no idea. I can't remember because my whole mind and everything was just to get to that library, to study there, and to take notes and to study and research and read. And I came back. Now you're asking me, I myself am confused. I'm not sure what the weather was like. I was completely in my own little world." They say that when he used to go to the libraries, one occasion, what happened? The librarian who was responsible for closing and opening the library and this and that, he says, the story says that Allama Amini goes, spends some time over there, and he was such a devoted scholar. Basically, no one knew, like once he was in the library, you would almost think there's no one here because he was so quiet. He was sitting, he was concentrating. It's like the librarian thought there's no one here now because he couldn't see anyone moving around and everything. So what did he do? It came to the end of the day. He assumed there was no one else in the library. He locked the library and he went home. Who was in the library? Allama Amini. The next morning, when the librarian comes back to open the library, he unlocks the door, he opens the door. Who does he see there sitting? He sees Allama Amini. He's very, very sorry. He apologizes. He says, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I now realize that you must have been here the whole night. I'm really sorry. I locked you in. I didn't know you were here." And in his frustration, the librarian threw down the lock of the door because he was frustrated and he was disappointed in himself. Allama Amini comes along. He picks up the lock in his humble way. He gives the lock back to the librarian. He says, "Why are you upset? You locking me in here gave me the opportunity and gave me the time that I could sit the whole night, and all I have done is I've prayed my prayers and I've studied this book. Were it not for you, I would have not had this opportunity. So don't worry. I'm very grateful to you." This is the kind of person we are talking about. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala floods us with his love and his inspiration and his nur and his light, honestly, other things become very meaningless for us. They become very small in our eyes. They don't have the same importance as they do for a worldly person. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide this person. Allah will nurture this person. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Those who strive in our way, we will guide them towards our paths. So this is Nafs Mulhama. Now, we said Nafs Mulhama is the stage where we truly become Abd of Allah, or the beginning of becoming Abd of Allah. This is a better way to say it, because no one can truly become Abd of Allah. Even Ahlul Bayt used to lament, even though they were so amazing and they knew Allah so much, they would often lament and they would say, "Oh Allah, we have not worshipped you as you deserve to be worshipped." Because no one can truly worship Allah as he deserves to be worshipped. So in this journey of becoming Abd of Allah, we come across this hadith of Inwan al-Basri, or sometimes it is pronounced Unwan al-Basri. Both are correct, but generally I've heard the scholars, they say Inwan al-Basri. I've asked you all to give me your understanding, your brief understanding of this hadith. It is one of those fundamental hadiths that we should all know, we should all be aware of, and we should all look into this. If you can, after this lecture or at some time in the near future, please look into this, read it, think about it, and reflect upon it. In this lecture, I just want to give you a few points from this hadith regarding the station of Abd Khuda, the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sayyida Hilmi, instruction given by Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, 3 strands of slavery, wayfaring towards Allah. Yes, we will look into this in a bit more detail just now. So the first thing is, let me describe to you who was Inwan and what were the circumstances leading to him having a conversation with none other than the Sadiq of Ali Muhammad, Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Inwan was a very old person. Now, everything that I'm going to say, it has a reason behind it, okay? Which we will reveal as we go along. Inwan was a very old person, and he was 94 years old, okay? And he was not a Shia. He was a Sunni of Medina. Imam was also in Kufa for a time and in Medina for a time. So this is when Imam was in Medina. Inwan narrates, who was 94 years old, remember he's a Sunni. Inwan narrates that I used to go to the classes of Malik ibn Anas for a few years. Who was Malik ibn Anas? This is the first question I want to ask. Malik ibn Anas, okay, Malik ibn Anas is the leader of the Sunni fiqh school of thought called Maliki. So when you go to Hajj or you go to other places and you see the Sunnis, they pray in 4 different ways. I don't understand sometimes why the non-Shias criticize the Shias. They say you all pray in a different way to us, but they themselves pray in 4 different ways. The 4 Sunni schools, they have 4 different ways of praying. So really, I don't understand the criticism towards the Shias. Anyway, You'll see some with hands up, some with hands slightly down, some with hands on the side, and you'll see one of the Sunni schools of thought who pray like us with hands down. These are the Malikis. Their leader or the founder of their school of thought was Malik ibn Anas, the same one that Inwan used to go to his classes. Who was Malik ibn Anas? He was basically a scholar of the time. He was a jurisprudent. He was a hadith scholar. He has the famous book that the Sunnis revere a lot called Muwatta of Malik. What people don't know as well is that Malik was none other than the student of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq. Abu Hanifa also was a student of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq. So I don't have time right now to go into detail, but if you study carefully, if you look carefully into the history, you will find all four Sunni schools of law, trace their influence and were influenced by Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. Abu Hanifa, direct student of Imam Sadiq. Abu Hanifa, what is his famous statement regarding Imam Sadiq alayhi salam? He says, لَوْلَا السَّنَتَانِ لَهَلَكَ Nu'man. His name was Nu'man. He says, if it wasn't for the 2 years I spent with Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, لَهَلَكَ Nu'man. I would have been destroyed. I would have been halak. Well, we see this in history, isn't it? Even the second Khalifa, Umar, even he says that were it not for Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, I would have been destroyed. So we have this clear thing throughout history that the so-called Sunni leaders, they rely on our imams for their salvation and for their guidance and for their support. Without our imams, I don't know where they would have been. But anyway, they all submit to the fact that were it not for the Shia imams, we would have been destroyed. So this is Abu Hanifa. He spent 2 years with Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Malik ibn Anas also spent time as the direct student of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Shafi'i, he didn't spend time with Imam Sadiq, but he was a student of Malik. So indirectly, Imam Sadiq has influenced Shafi'i. Hanbali, same. Not a direct student, but he was a student of a student. He is also indirectly influenced by Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. They all pay tribute to the wonderful knowledge, amazing knowledge of our sixth Imam. Okay, so this is now Medina. Inwan, an old elderly Sunni man, 94 years old. He says, for a time I was going to the classes of Malik ibn Anas. But when Imam Sadiq alayhi salam came to Medina from Kufa, because Imam Sadiq was in Kufa for 2 years, when Imam Sadiq came to Medina, I started to go to his classes. Okay? And now he says, I understood the clear difference between these two. One hand Malik ibn Anas, on one hand Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq. He says, I quickly deciphered the difference between these two. He said, I understood that quality, real knowledge, true knowledge is at the door of Ahlul Bayt. So he said, I desired to go and ask Imam some questions and to become like a closer student of Imam. So I went and I asked, can I see you? Can I speak to you in more depth? Can I come to you and learn more from you? Imam replied, Inni rajulun matloob. I'm a very busy person. You are going to the classes of Malik already. Keep going there. Seek from him what you seek. Now, why would an Imam say this? You see, if a Maulana said this today, I'm sorry, I'm very busy, people will say, oh my God, astaghfirullah, what kind of Maulana is he? We don't understand sometimes that the Imam sometimes would say things to get that person to be awakened. Imam, it seems, was trying to say, you're not ready yet for what I want to give you. Imam was trying to create more yearning and more feeling in Inwan to make him more ready and more prepared for what Imam wanted to say. So now Inwan, this old elderly Sunni man, he said to himself, there must be something wrong in me. Now think, if it was me and you, what would we do? If someone says, I'm too busy, come back later, I don't have time right now, we would start to swear and to curse and to say, what kind of person is this? Doesn't give me time. Who does he think he is? He's arrogant, blah, blah, blah. I think sometimes we need to introspect. We need to have husnezan on others, su'ezan on ourselves. Inwan was very humble. This was a very, very good quality in him. He says, there must be something wrong in me. That's why this great man is not giving me an audience. So he was very upset with himself. He says he must not have seen any goodness in me, otherwise he would not have sent me away like this. So then what does Inwan do? Look at his age, 94 years old. You're telling me that a 94-year-old in our community, you try to teach them something, my God, it'll be qayamat. But this is a 94-year-old who has realized that the journey of knowledge never ends. Even at 94, he's yearning and he's desperate for knowledge. So he said, I went where? In Medina. Where will you go if you have a problem? Well, today's Sunnis and those days Sunnis are different. Unfortunately, today, we don't have this quality in our Sunni brothers and sisters. In those days, it seems there was this quality. What did he say? He says, I went to the mosque of Rasulullah. I went to the Prophet's mosque. And I said salams to Rasulullah. And then I went there again. Iqbal Haider has a question. Inshallah, I will answer later. I went to the mosque of Rasulullah. I said salams to the Holy Prophet. Again, the next morning, I went again and I said salam again. And I recited 2 rakats of prayer. And I asked Allah, oh Allah, make the heart of Ja'far ibn Muhammad soft towards me. And he says, I really did not want to go to the lessons of Malik anymore. Why? He had seen the difference between a true scholar, Imam Ja'far Sadiq, and Malik. He said, I really did not want to go to the lessons of Malik anymore. I then began to stay at home. So he was very upset. He was very concerned. He says, I used to then stay at home and I only left my home for namaz-e-jamaat. I used to go for my prayers until there came a time when my sabr was exhausted. And I said to myself, no, I will go again to the door of Imam Sadiq and I will sit there until he accepts me. I don't know how many of us would do this. How many of us would have this much sabr and azm and determination? Can you please mute yourselves, whoever that is? Admin, can you help me out and just mute this other noises, please? So he says, I resolved, he had so much sabr and determination that he said, no, I will go, no matter what happens. I will go and I will sit there and I will not leave there until Imam Sadiq alayhi salam accepts and he begins to speak to me.
Dia bukan ceramah, didik. Itu Dr. Ali cakap apa, sekarang ni orang semua apa, cari orang didik.
Hello, admin. Admin, are you there? Can you hear me? Yallah, I guess not. Anyway, so one day he decided, I'm not going to relent. I'm going to go to the door of Imam Sadiq and I will not move until he sees me. So he says, on one particular day, after Asr time, I went there, I knocked on the door, the helper, the khadim of Imam Sadiq's house came, and he says, what do you want? He says, can I see the Sharif? He doesn't say, can I see the Imam? Because he was a Sunni. And so as a Sunni, he doesn't recognize Imam as Imam. So he used a respectful term. He says, can I see the Sharif, the honorable one? He was told Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is engaged in prayers. He says, I sat at the door. After some time, the servant came and said, Udkhulu ala barakatillah. Subhanallah. The servant came and said, you may enter with the blessings of Allah. Then he says, I met Imam Sadiq alayhi salam in his house, and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam greeted me and said, Ijlis ghafarallahu lak. Have a seat, may Allah forgive you. So I sat, and then Imam put his head down, and he was silent for a while, and he lifted his head and said to me, Abu Man, that means, what is your title? You know, in Arabic, we have different ways of addressing people. Generally, in Arabic, to address someone by their name is not respectful. So if your name is, for example, Inwan, just to say Inwan, this is not respectful. Usually they use the kunya, the epithet of that person. And the kunya is usually, you are father of so-and-so. So Imam asked him, what is your kunya, Abu Man? Whose father are you? So he was very respectful. Qultu Aba Abdullah. The answer from Inwan was, my kunya is Aba Abdullah. Well, subhanallah, because Imam Sadiq alayhi salam's kunya is also Aba Abdullah. Imam Hussein's is also Aba Abdullah. Imam says, Qala thabbatallah kunyatak wa wafaqak. He said, may Allah make firm your kunya. In other words, may Allah protect you. Wa wafaqak. And may He make you successful. Ma mas'alatuk. What is your subject of discussion that you wish to discuss? Inwan says that when Imam said these words, I said to myself in my mind, that if I get nothing else from this man except for this dua, then this is enough for me. Look how humble, look how nice. Although we have exception to his faith, he was not a follower of Ahlul Bayt, but look how humble he was. And this is what I'm trying to say, that sometimes the soul can create very, very nice qualities in a person. So I said, Inwan says, I said to Imam, Sa'altullaha an yu'tifa qalbaka alayya, that I have been praying to Allah to turn your heart alayya, towards me, wa yarzuquni, and to grant me min ilmika, from your knowledge, wa arju anna Allah ta'ala ajabani, and I am now sure that Allah has answered my prayer, fi sharif ma sa'altu, through you, you honorable person, you sharif person, whatever I asked Allah, I think now He has granted me. Very humble, very beautiful way of expressing. Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam says, regarding knowledge, now this is the beginning of the discussion of what Imam says. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, Laysa al-ilm bit-ta'allum. He says, in one, you want knowledge. True knowledge doesn't come from reading books and studying from normal kind of knowledge, textbooks and these things. It doesn't come from there. True knowledge, Imam says, doesn't come from the usual methods of reading books and these things. So does that mean we should not read books, we should not study? No. In the beginning, at the beginning levels of knowledge, of course, we must refer to scholars, we must read books, we must do all of these things. But those are at the beginning level. When we want true knowledge, remember what we are saying, true knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it comes in a different form. It has to build upon that book knowledge and that academic knowledge. Academic knowledge is very, very important. We must gain academic knowledge. But then on top of that, it requires purification of the soul. So Imam says, true knowledge does not come from academic study. Innama huwa nurun. It is nothing but a light. يقع في قلب من يريد الله أن يهديه. It is nothing but a light that Allah places in the heart of one whom He wishes to guide. So I can introduce you right now. I know people personally who are professors in Islamic studies, but they are non-Muslims. They know more about Islam than probably we do, but they are not Muslims. The light of Iman has not entered their hearts. The information of Islam has entered their hearts. They have information, they have data. They don't have the tawfiq of embracing the faith. Imam says you can learn all that you wish, but until you don't become humble and submissive and obedient to Allah, that true level of knowledge, the spiritual level of knowledge will not enter your heart. So then Imam answers the question. Imam says, knowledge is not from academic research and work. It is a nur which Allah puts in the heart of whomever He wishes to guide. فَإِنْ أَرَدْتَ الْعِلْمِ. So if you want knowledge, this true knowledge, فَطْلُبْ أَوَّلًا. Then first of all, you need to do one thing. فِي نَفْسِكَ حَقِيقَةَ الْعُبُودِيَّةِ. Then the first thing you need to do is in your heart and in your soul, you need to seek the reality of being a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Haqiqatal ubudiyya. Ubudiyya is servanthood, being a servant. Haqiqa means reality. Ubudiyat ki haqiqat. The reality of being a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, this one sentence that I've just read out to you, many of the senior ulama have advised their students and disciples to write this on a piece of paper and always keep it with them in their pockets. And whenever they have a moment, to take it out and to read it and to put it back. Because in Shia Islam, what we believe is you need ilm and you need amal. You need knowledge and you need action. We do not believe in knowledge without action. And we also do not believe that action can be perfect without knowledge, because ma'rifat has to be there for the action to be very, very special. And action has to be there for the knowledge and ilm that you have to be worth something. Qultu ya Sharif. Inwan really was a very, I find him very respectful. Qultu ya Sharif. I said, O Sharif. فَقَالَ قُلْ يَا أَبَا عَبْدِ اللَّهِ. So Imam said to me, yes, tell me, O Abba Abdullah. Look at Imam's respect. Inwan is respectful, Imam is even more respectful. He says, yes, tell me, Abba Abdullah, what is it? I said to Imam, what do you mean by haqiqat al-ubudiyya? What do you mean by the reality of servanthood? Imam said, by reality of servanthood, I mean 3 things. And I think here we will stop. I've stopped at a cliffhanger. 3 things that Imam mentions is the reality of servanthood. Servanthood gives you ilm, true ilm. What are those 3 things? Inshallah, we will discuss that more tomorrow, inshallah. If we are alive and if we have tawfiq, we will discuss this more tomorrow. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Azadaran of Imam Hussein, Ghamkharan Sayyid al-Shuhada, Matamdaran of Janab Fatima, tonight in our remembrance of the sacrifice of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we have started now to remember the different Shuhada from the family of Imam Hussein. Tonight we remember one very, very Mazloom Shaheed. All 5 of the Panjatan were represented in Karbala. As far as Bibi Fatima goes, she is represented by her daughter Bibi Zainab. Rasulullah was represented by Imam Hussein himself. Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam was represented by Hazrat Abbas. What about Imam Hassan? Imam Hassan's contribution to Karbala is one of the highest of all contributions. Imam Hassan alayhi salam had 5 sons, according to some histories. He had 5 sons. One of them was the youngest of all of them. His name was Abdullah. Abdullah is that Shaheed you may have heard, that he was one of the final people to be killed. He was the young son of Imam Hassan. He was very beloved to Imam Hussein, and he loved Imam Hussein very, very much and very intensely. When did he die? He died when Imam alayhi salam was on his last few moments. Imam Hussein alayhi salam had been knocked from the horse, landed on the ground. The forces of Umar Sa'ad surrounded Abu Abdullah. Bibi Zainab was standing on Tillay Zainabiyya, watching this whole scene. In her hands, in her grasp, was this young son of Imam Hassan alayhi salam called Abdullah. Abdullah was watching Imam Hussein alayhi salam being killed in this way, surrounded by people. He could not bear anymore. He loosened himself from the grip of Bibi Zainab and he ran towards Imam Hussein. And they say that he dived to save or to protect Imam Hussein. And at that moment, he was cut to pieces by the forces of Umar ibn Sa'd. This was one son. Imam Hassan had 5 sons. The famous son of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, whom we can say represented Hassan Mujtaba on the day of Ashura, his name was Qasim, Janab Qasim, Hazrat Qasim, Shah Qasim. And really, he was like a prince. He was amazing in his character. On the night of Ashura, Janab Qasim is sitting with Imam Hussein. Janab Qasim was the copy of Imam Hassan. They say that whenever Ahlul Bayt wanted to remember Rasulullah, they would look at the face of Aliyun al-Akbar. Whenever they wanted to remember their brother Hassan, they used to look at the face of Qasim. Qasim was the reminder of Ahlul Bayt of their brother Imam Hassan. Imam Hussein alayhi salam on the night of Ashura, he begins to tell everybody, you will be Shaheed, you will be Shaheed, how they will be Shaheed, where they will fall, what will happen. And he would be telling everyone of their next day's future and telling them, giving them good tidings of the way they will become martyred. Hazrat Qasim is sitting there and he's thinking to himself, Imam is telling every single person about the Shahadat, but he hasn't said anything to me. So Hazrat Qasim begins to cry. And he has this small fear that there may be a chance that I'm not included tomorrow amongst the Shuhada. Qasim is concerned. He approaches his uncle, Imam Hussein. He says to his uncle, tell me, will I also be amongst the Shuhada? I don't know, lovers of Imam Hussein, what would have come upon the heart of Abu Abdullah when his nephew Qasim is asking him this question. Imam Hussein alayhi salam flips the question back. He says, oh Qasim, you tell me, Kayfal mautu indak, how is death to you? What do you think of death? Qasim says, Ahla min al-asl. For me, death is sweeter than honey. In other words, I'm not afraid of death. I am the son of Mujtaba. I'm not afraid of these kinds of things. Imam confirms with Qasim that yes, you will also be amongst the shuhada. Now, on the day of Ashura, as each and every person is going into the battlefield and coming, their body is coming back after their shahada, Qasim would come again and again. And he would ask Imam Hussein, can I go now? Can I go now? Is it my turn? Can you send me? Will you give me permission? Imam must have been looking at Qasim again and again, thinking, how will I let you go, O memory of my beloved brother? How will I let you go and how can I lose you? So Imam begins to make excuses. He would say to Qasim, not now, later, there are still people left, come back later. Or he would say things like, go and bid farewell, go and see your mom, go and see your aunt, go and see the other ladies, see, bid farewell to them, have your final conversation. Again and again, Imam would try to delay the shahadat of Hazrat Qasim. Hazrat Qasim is now worried. Hazrat Qasim comes to his mother. He says to his mother, something is not right. I want to go and fight. I want to give my sacrifice, but my uncle is not allowing me to go. He keeps delaying. The mother says, Qasim, remember one thing. Remember the letter, the document of your father. Remember what he said. He said, when things become very tough, when things are at their utmost, when you don't find any way out, you open this document and you show it to my brother. Some people say this document was stored in a box. Some people say it was like a taweez. Some people say it was like a bazu band, like a something tied upon the arm of Janab Qasim. Janab Qasim opens this letter and gives it to Aba Abdullah. Imam Hussein alayhi salam sees the writing of his brother, Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, and he begins to cry. He puts the letter to his lips, he kisses it, and then he reads the letter. The letter, what did it say? It must have said something like, oh Hussein, at your time of ghurbat, at your time of loneliness, when you have no one else to help you, my son Qasim is there. Take him as my sacrifice for Karbala. Eventually, after reading this letter, Imam reluctantly gives his permission to Hazrat Qasim. Hazrat Qasim is made ready. The armor is put upon him. He is sent out into Karbala. Imam Hussein himself puts the amama of Imam Hassan on the head of Hazrat Qasim. The Rawi, the narrator, says that when Qasim came out of the tent on the day of Ashura, it looked like the moon had come out from behind the clouds. He was so young, but he was so handsome. And Hazrat Qasim now rides out into Karbala. They say Hazrat Qasim fought bravely, was very courageous, fought with such vigor and such courage. But one man was able to push Qasim off the horse. Qasim fell to the floor. They hit Qasim in such a way that Qasim now was in his final moments. He shouts out to his uncle, Assalamu alaik, O Hussein, come to me. O Uncle Hussein, come to me. Imam Hussein, they say, he ran a great distance to reach the body of Qasim. The enemies made it as difficult as possible for Hussein to reach the body of Qasim. They say they got their horses, they made a circle around Qasim so that Imam Hussein could not reach. And Qasim would be shouting again and again, Adrikni ya Aba Abdullah, Adrikni ya Aba Abdullah. But the sad thing about the shahadat of Hazrat Qasim was this. All the other shuhada, they would call Imam Hussein once and Imam Hussein would reach there. but not Janab Qasim, because as the enemies were circling him, they kept on hitting him, they kept on putting their spears into him, they kept on riding their horses over him. So Qasim was the only shaheed. He did not call only once to Imam Hussein, but every time the horses passed over him, every time the spears were thrown at him, he would shout again and again, Adrikni ya Aba Abdullah, Adrikni ya Aba Abdullah. And they say that Qasim is that one shaheed, that Imam Hussein could not pick up his entire body in one go. They said that there were pieces of the body of Janab Qasim. Imam had to gather them and then take them back to the tents. Allah la'natullahi al-qawmi al-zalimin wa sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalibin yanqalibun.